When you look at the world today, I mean, it's like the globe is spinning out of control. There's so much hurt and hate and poverty and secularism and spiritual darkness that is just like standing like a collective boot on the neck of millions. And in our own culture, here at home in America, I'm telling you, we all feel it, don't we? The decline and the decay of the culture around us. We feel it, see it in our schools, our institutions, on the news, everywhere. And in the middle of all of that, guess what? Christians are being looked to with less and less seriousness. Our brand stinks. Talk to my friend Chris, who's not a believer. He'll tell you what he thinks of most Christians. They're narrow-minded, they're bigoted, they're usually ignorant, they're mean-spirited, they're judgmental. That's his impression of the church. I don't like that, but he's just shooting straight with me. It makes me think of that story about Andy Harris. Andy Harris was part of that expedition that John Krakauer told about in his book, Into Thin Air, that group that went up Mount Everest, but it went bad. Andy Harris stayed on the summit too long. And so he starts coming down, and nightfall is coming in, and a big blizzard is coming on the top of Mount Everest there, and he radios to the group, hey, I'm in dire need of oxygen. Where did you put those oxygen tanks? And they radio back to him, Andy, we left them right there in the camp. All those canisters there, they're full of oxygen. Well, he's holding them in his hands, but because of the oxygen deprivation impairing his judgment, he already doesn't, he says, no, I'm holding these, but these are empty. These are no good. Where are the full oxygen canisters? And they're pleading with him. Andy, they're right there in your hands. Put them up to your mouth. He's like, no, these are no good. These are useless. He throws them in the snow and he staggers about, and they found him later dead in the snow, surrounded by those full oxygen canisters. It's a tragic tale. And that is so much like the predicament we're in today, because we're stewards of the life-giving hope and life and truth and grace and love of Jesus Christ. And so many people are like, they've seen enough of Christianity to think they don't want anything to do with it. They've held some church in their hand, and they're like, that isn't what I'm looking for. They're spiritual. They're looking for something. They're looking everywhere. But the last place sometimes they think to look is the church. The church in America, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. I love that we can get together and encourage each other. But folks, the church in America is losing ground big time. David T. Olson says on an average Sunday in this country, about 17% of us are finding our way to church. That means there's a whole lot of your neighbors that don't think what we're here to do this week is that important at all. A whole lot of them. In a recent 6-year span, this decade, across America, we planted 2,000 new churches. That's exciting. But the other news is that in that same span of time, we would have needed not 2,000 churches, but 19,000 new churches just to keep up with population growth. See? And inside the church, there's a rumbling, and I hope you hear it, and I hope some of it's happening at your church, where people are asking these unsettling questions, like, are we getting the job done? Are people really being transformed by the gospel? Are we really changing? Like the atheist that goes and visits those churches, and he writes that book, Jim and Casper Go to Church, and he looks at all the churches and the way we do it and the big things and all that, and he says, is this really what Jesus told you guys to do? Folks, someone's got to ask tough questions like that, because this is no time for business as usual. It's no time for a few minor tweaks, pick up a workshop, take it home, and teach the class at home. No, we're talking about something that I think God wants to do to take us beyond. And you know what? The amazing kicker is in all of this, that the agent of transformation that God has in mind is little old you and me from Hickory. To send His grace and life-changing, transforming power through us. Wow.